Hi, it's Laura at Aquamarine 18. I am here with day 2 of the 31 Days of Witchcraft tag started by Heather Carter. I will link the information for 31 Days of Witchcraft below. And so day two's prompt, which I'll also link in the description box, is do you work with any specific deities as part of your practice? Why or why not? And the answer to this question is no. I don't work with deities of any sort in my practice in any way whatsoever. I would say, absolutely have concepts of sacredness or even divinity. That's not necessarily the language I use most often, but certainly sacredness is a part of my practice, but deity in a personified sense is not. And I think that there's two, for me, sets of reasons for this. One of which I will say is a kind of reactive set of reasons, and the other is a more conscious and active set of reasons. So in terms of kind of reactive reasons for this, my not working with deity of any sort, I think absolutely has something to do with having been brought up going to Catholic school and in a Christian kind of context, not a very strict one, but certainly growing up with Catholicism as my frame of reference for understanding spirituality or religion. And there's a prompt later on in the month about what kind of religious or spiritual upbringings we had. So I won't say too much about this here, but it is to say that in my, starting in my early teens or so, I really started to push back against the Catholic ways of thinking and ideas and principles that I was being taught. I did so from a place of, emergent feminism and queerness and anarchism and, an anti-oppression kind of way of thinking. And so in that time when I was younger, I was really actively atheist, like committedly so, because my frame of reference for deity was in this context that I found to be very oppressive and repressive and constraining and limiting and hierarchical and dogmatic and all kinds of things that just I wanted absolutely no part of. So very much my reaction to this was like, this whole kind of religion and spirituality thing is not for me. I don't like this. Like, no, thank you. Don't impose this on me. So I would be, missing something if I didn't say that now. When I say that I don't work with deity of any sort in my practice, like part of it I think has to kind of go back to that. But I'm not interested in kind of doing or not doing things in my spiritual practice now, just out of reaction to things I don't like, obviously. So the more kind of active and conscious reason that I would say now that I don't work with deity or personified, anthropomorphized, divinity of any sort in my practice is because I identify as a pantheist. And so for me, pantheism means that sacredness is everywhere, and sacredness is everything. It's the universe, it's the cosmos, and all of these things are interconnected and in important ways kind of made up of the same stuff, so to speak, in a monist kind of sense. So for me, the universe is sacred, the cosmos is sacred, the earth is sacred, trees and animals and the air and the things around me. And for me, looking at the world in this way means that there isn't any kind of division, like let alone a neat and tidy division between kind of the mundane world on the one hand, and something divine like deity on the other that is separate, right? And I haven't found a way. Granted, I haven't like been actively really looking for a way, but I certainly haven't found a way to incorporate deity or personifications of sacredness in that way into my practice that feels cohesive with that pantheist way of looking at the world. The idea of working with deity as something separate, in its divinity, something separate, and in a sense, greater than or above the environment that I'm in, above everything else, is not something that I can readily wrap my head around while maintaining a pantheistic worldview. So for that reason, that's the main reason that I don't work with deity in my practice at all. Because for me, there isn't a, greater than, more divine than, more sacred than, that is separate from the world, or is separate from a kind of more mundane world, ontologically speaking. So that's kind of why. I could potentially see this, nothing in my spiritual practice I don't think is, not subject to change. In answering these kinds of prompts and talking about my beliefs and my practices, it's always with the understanding that, my path is a path, right? It's something that I'm moving along and things change. So I don't want to say that I could never, or I would never, or I will never incorporate any kind of deity into my practice. But right now, it's not really for me. I could potentially imagine, envision this changing, insofar as I could imagine perhaps having for example, representation of Gaia, in my sacred space as a representation of the sacredness of the earth, right? But even in that kind of context, it would be very much thinking about deity in a kind of archetypal, symbolic sense, and not in a kind of like theistic, like polytheist or monotheist sense, ontologically speaking, in terms of my beliefs about the kinds of stuff or the kinds of entities or the kinds of beings that make up the world, right? It would be very much on the level of archetypal or symbolic were I to incorporate deity into my practice at this time. But right now, I don't. I don't work with any specific deities as part of my practice. I don't work with deity as part of my practice, full stop. And it is very much because of my pantheistic outlook on life. So that's all I have to say for today's prompts. I'm, of course, going to be keenly watching other folks' response to this question. I'm always interested in having conversations about topics like these. So thank you to Heather for starting this series. I'm really enjoying participating and looking forward to the discussion. So thank you so much for watching and have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.